Hello fellow mystery lovers. Well, today our look at the Sherlock TV series continues on with the Hounds of Baskerville. Sherlock and John receive a visit from Henry Knight, who witnessed his father's death by a gigantic hound at Dartmoor 20 years ago. After years of therapy, Henry visited the site again, only to see the hound again, prompting his request for help. Though initially dismissive, Sherlock is interested by Henry's use of hound instead of dog. Sherlock and John arrive in Dartmoor to find the hound is a local legend. They visit Baskerville, a nearby Ministry of Defense research base, using Mycroft's security pass. After Mycroft's credentials cause a security alert, Dr. Bob Franklin vouches for Sherlock's identity, despite knowing the truth. Franklin says he was a friend of Henry's father and is concerned for Henry's well-being. Henry tells John and Sherlock about the words liberty and inn in his dreams. Sherlock, John, and Henry visit the Hollow in hope of finding the hound. On the way, John notices what seems to be Morse code signals. These are unrelated. They were headlight flashes from a group of doggers. When Sherlock and Henry arrive at the Hollow, they both see the hound. At a local inn, Sherlock is visibly shaken and confesses he saw the hound. John tries calming him, suggesting he is imagining things. Sherlock reacts with anger, denying there is something wrong with him. John tries to interview Henry's therapist, Louisa Mortimer. However, they are interrupted by Franklin, who blows his cover. Meanwhile, Henry hallucinates the hound is stalking his home. Ew. The next morning, Sherlock realizes hound may be an acronym rather than a word. The pair run into D.I. Lestrade, who was sent by Mycroft to keep an eye on Sherlock. They interrogate the innkeepers about a past order for meat that John has spotted, which struck him as odd for a vegetarian restaurant. The innkeepers kept a dog on the moor to boost the tourist trade, but assure the investigators they had put it down. This explanation satisfies Lestrade, but not Sherlock, who insists the dog he saw was monstrous. Calling Mycroft, Sherlock gains access to Baskerville again. Searching the lower levels of the genetics labs, John finds himself trapped and then hears growling, which he assumes is a hound. Locking himself in an empty cage, he calls Sherlock, who rescues him. Sherlock deduces a chemical weapon designed to trigger violent hallucinations was responsible. Retreating into his mind palace, a memory technique, Sherlock realizes Liberty and Inn stands for Liberty, Indiana. After viewing confidential files, he sees Hound was a secret CIA project aimed at creating a hallucinatory anti-personnel chemical weapon, but the project was abandoned several years before. Sherlock realizes Franklin, who participated in the project, has continued it in secret. Bom bom bom! After John receives a call from Mortimer that Henry has run off with a gun, John, Sherlock, and Lestrade run to the Hollow to find Henry about to commit suicide. Sherlock explains the hound was an hallucination. His father was actually killed by Franklin, who was wearing a gas mask and a sweatshirt with Hound Liberty Inn on it. A child could not cope with this, so his mind tricked him. Every time Henry came back, Franklin gassed him with a hallucinogen. The chemical introduced the fog they encountered at the Hollow, triggered by pressure pads in the area. As Henry calms down, they also see the innkeeper's dog. John shoots it. Sherlock finds and catches Franklin at the scene. Henry realizes that Franklin murdered Henry's father because he found him testing the drug. Franklin flees into the base's minefield and gets blown up. As Sherlock and John prepare to leave the next morning, John wonders why he saw the hound in the lab despite not having inhaled the gas from the Hollow. Sherlock surmises that John was poisoned by the leaking pipes in the laboratory, and John realizes Sherlock locked him in the labs in order to test his theory. He also points out Sherlock was wrong for once. He believed the drug was in Henry's sugar and put it in John's coffee. In the closing scenes, Mycroft oversees the release of Jim Moriarty from a holding cell, in which he has written Sherlock's name all over the walls. Okay, I don't know why you're doing that, but whatever. So, yeah. Anyway, let's look at the sources and allusions to this episode that are all throughout this episode. This story is based on Arthur Conan Doyle's novel The Hound of the Baskervilles, and also contains plot devices and lines from other Doyle stories. The hallucinogenic gas comes from the adventure of the Devil's Foot. Holmes' blood-soaked appearance with a harpoon comes from the adventure of Black Peter. Holmes' stated preference for something stronger than tea, perhaps 7% stronger, is a reference to his use of a 7% cocaine solution described in The Sign of the Four. The scene wherein Holmes claims to have made a bet with Watson comes from a similar scene in The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle. The episode also introduces the popular catchphrase, "Once you ruled out the impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be true," from several stories. Sherlock calls Lestrade brown as a nut, a phrase taken word for word from a different conversation in The Study in Scarlet. Alright, so finally, let's look at the production of this episode. In June 2011, it was announced that Russell Tovey would appear in Sherlock Series 2 in his second episode. Tovey, like Sherlock for staying true to the style of novels despite its modern twist, said of the experience, quote, "It's amazing to be a part of it," adding, "I got to act with Benedict and Martin, which was awesome." The actor also explained that during his scenes, quote, "We did about 2.5 weeks of night shoots in Cardiff and I felt like I had jet lag." In terms of Henry's character, Tovey did not want him to be a quote, gibbering wreck, but rather mature and truthful as well as damaged and haunted. Gatiss also made Henry display signs of survivor guilt. Tovey's nephew auditioned for the part of a younger Henry, but another child actor was cast for the role as the nephew was considered too young. The episode was based on the Hound of the Baskervilles, first serialized in 1901 to 1902. It is considered one of Arthur Conan Doyle's most famous Holmes stories, as it was written after Doyle killed off Sherlock and consequently, sold well. It was also one of the most adapted novels in the Sherlock Holmes series. Because of his popularity, writer Mark Gatiss felt a greater responsibility to include familiar elements of the story than he did when adapting the lesser-known stories. Conan Doyle had killed off his famous character in the 1893 story The Final Problem, but bowed to popular pressure to write another Holmes adventure. Gatiss observed that Conan Doyle's weariness with the character is demonstrated by Holmes's absence for half of The Hound of the Baskervilles, in which Dr. Watson's role is foregrounded. In contrast to the original, however, the producers decided to center Sherlock in their adaptation, so Sherlock only threatens to stay behind in London. In addition, the 3 episodes of the second series show Sherlock dealing respectively with love, fear, and death. Here, the producers wanted Sherlock, an arch-rationalist, to confront something that seemed impossible, especially since their Sherlock is still a young character who has not experienced fear yet. Freeman stated that when he sees the Hound, Sherlock becomes, quote, really terrified, and for some time stops trusting the evidence he has seen. The producers also considered how to make the dog believable because, according to Gatiss, audiences always find the dog disappointing in the adaptations. Therefore, Gatiss wanted the solution to be more than a, quote, dog with luminous paint. In one scene, Henry has an hallucination in his home, wherein the Hound sets off the bright security lights in his back garden. That scene is apparently based on the experience of co-creator Stephen Moffat and his executive producer wife Sue Virtue, who also have bright security lights and are frequently startled when the lights turn on at night. There were other differences from the novel. Henry Knight was based on Sir Henry Baskerville, but the character Barrymore, the butler in the book, became an army major. Another character, Fletcher, was original to the episode. The character is based on Bertram Fletcher Robinson, the journalist who assisted Doyle with the novel. In another scene, Sherlock notices what appears to be Morse code, but it is unrelated to the case. Moffat named it the funny scene where the producers take an element from Doyle's work and, quote, do something cheeky with it. The Baskerville base is based on Porton Down Military Science Research Center. While conducting research for the episode, Gatiss learned that the artists and scientists made a luminous rabbit, using the green fluorescent protein of a jellyfish, which formed the basis for a side story involving a glow-in-the-dark rabbit created at Baskerville by Dr. Stapleton, the mother and child who wrote to Sherlock at the beginning of the episode, requesting that he help her find her missing rabbit. In the episode, it specified that the splicin GFP gene that allowed the rabbit to glow had come from a jellyfish, the species a courier of Victoria. Also, Gates suggested that the concept of a mind palace, a memory technique originating in ancient Greece. The idea came from a book by illusionist Darren Brown. This technique will lead Sherlock to the revelation of the secret Hound project. Early script drafts had Henry accidentally kill Louise Mortimer, but producers were never satisfied with this development, thinking Henry would have failed if she died. Writers also posited the idea Henry's father's murder involved revenge after he had an affair, but the producers and Gaius found it easier to mention he died because he learned of Franklin's experiments with a hallucinogenic gas. The ending also changed. The final scene had originally involved Moriarty entering the Tower of London, but that was held back for the following episode. The Hounds of Baskerville took around 4 weeks to film, with shooting mostly taking place throughout May 2011. Additional scenes were later shot in July and August. Filming on location mostly took place across South Wales, with parts of the episode being shot on location in Dartmoor, even though the producers did not originally intend to do so. The first day took place at a cemetery. The producers were looking for a village in South Wales that was very English-looking. Scenes of the fictional Cross Keys pub were filmed at the Bush Inn in St. Hilary, Vale of Glamorgan. The production team donated £500 to the village after filming had finished. In one scene, after Sherlock first witnesses the Hound, Sherlock makes deductions about a mother and son from a nearby table. In filming the scene, Cumberbatch had to recall multiple pages of monologue in front of camera, and had to talk faster than he was used to. The scenes at Baskerville were filmed at a number of locations. The exterior was filmed at the gasworks by Baverstocks near... I'm probably going to screw this pronunciation, so excuse me. Widscoed and mid Glamorgan. The labs, meanwhile, were filmed in 2 separate locations, one of which was a microchip processing facility. The switch between two locations meant that the crew had to transport a lift set. The scenes in Dewar's Hollow, where the Hound was sighted, was filmed near Castle Koch. The reveal scenes of the Hollow took 2 nights to film. At some point, filming the scenes were delayed due to rain. The scenes shot in Dartmoor took place in areas such as Haytor and Houndtor, the latter of which was said to be where the original story was set. Throughout his scenes, Rupert Graves was tanned because before filming this episode, the actor was in Guadalupe, an island of the Caribbean, appearing in Death in Paradise. As a result, Gatiss added mention that Lestrade went on holiday in the script. In the original episode, John was to hallucinate the Hound at a meat storage locker. However, after visiting such a locker in Bristol, the producers came to realize that it would be too expensive and cold for Freeman, forcing them to change the setting to the Baskerville Labs. In one scene, Sherlock is driving a Land Rover with John as a passenger after their arrival in Dartmoor. John was originally going to be the one driving the car, however, Freeman cannot drive. In the client scenes, Tovey had to smoke an herbal cigarette as it was illegal to smoke real cigarettes on set. Throughout the episode, the production crew had to split dioptries in certain scenes, a camera technique where 2 separate camera angles are the same focus on screen. The episode also includes shots of the Hound, which was produced by Visual Effects. Although the series used computer-generated imagery in the past, it was the first time a visual effect was made on a large scale. However, there was no guide for the cast to interact with. That's interesting. So overall, I say this is a really good, frightening story, and well, it's definitely one of my personal favorites. So overall, I give The Hounds of Baskerville 5 Deerstalkers out of 5. Well, join me tomorrow as we take a look at the Reichenbach Fall. So until then, remember everyone... There, hold on. Okay, stop. Okay. So until then, remember, the game's afoot.